So what I've noticed locally,
the ADD podcast.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
100%.
So what I've noticed is, and this was a problem, not where I was, but in Texas and Florida when I was a kid, is there's these things called Sarms, which are basically, they're like steroids, but you could buy them over the counter as a research chemical, whatever.
I didn't know that.
I've noticed locally that a lot of these kids, these athletes they're not necessarily doing steroids, but they're taking these substances that can affect them in the long term as far as fertility and a lot of side effects we don't even know because they're not really that studied. And if they are, it's in a dose. For example, I think it's Ostarine, which is one of them. The studied dose was 3 milligrams. The caps are 50 milligrams per capsule.
Jesus.
It's kind of the difference between drinking 8 ounces of water and 8 gallons of water.
Well, I mean, can you explain what SARM stands for?
Man, so basically it's not just without defining it, it's not a steroid, but it's an androgen modulator, which acts very similar to steroids on the receptor, but it's also suppressive. So when you give a teenager who's developing something that suppresses their own testosterone, there's a lot of bad things that can happen because they're developing. And when you're developing, you don't want to hinder that development. And you don't want to put something that's hepatotoxic, which is liver toxicity, in your body. So I don't know if you're noticing, I don't think it's more, because again, we grew up in the era of pro hormones and Marc McGuire. So I don't think it's more, but I do see an issue with it. So have you noticed that kids are looking for shortcuts? Have you had to deal with that? How do you deal with that? What if a kid came to you and said, hey, I want to do this? Like, how do you deal with a kid who's looking at a short-term fix that would actually be a long-term nightmare?
Right. Any kid who knows me, they understand my philosophy of work and commitment. So something I speak about with kids all the time is we have some basic nutrition guidelines. 3 meals by 3 o'clock, 5 meals before bed.
I like that.
You know, drinking more milk throughout the day, chocolate milk. You know, I think of books like Super Squats and
dude, I love you, man. That's kind of like our similar nutrition.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I could send you guys, it's a real basic one, but I've actually never had an athlete approach me about SARMs. And it's because when they're training with us, because we're not doing bullshit, they get fucking strong. And what I tell kids is like, you're at the age where you should get jacked looking at the weights, like without the use of any drugs. What do some of our athletes take? Protein powders, and they'll take pre-workout without me knowing about it.
Yeah. The SARMs, no one's ever come to me and asked my opinion because they know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But you hear them talking about it, and we had a female come up to us the other day. Remember that? I'm not going to say where it was because then we'll know who it was, because they will probably watch this. So, and she's like, she was concerned about her peers, and she's like, yo, these dudes are on a bunch of drugs.
Yeah. Oh,
I was like, well, here's the negatives of it. And she was just like concerned. So as a coach, I understand. See, now when I was in high school, I never did steroids. I didn't know they existed. I didn't know what they were. I thought it was something you could catch from eating raw chicken. You know, I had no idea. And my school made me take a drug test. Not even playing. They asked me to. It was
really?
Yeah. So I had to take a drug test my senior year, junior going into senior year. I gained 70 pounds in 3 months in the summer. I hit puberty and I started lifting, and I got acne from it, and then I was that guy on steroids. It was kind of mortifying.
Like today, people, coaches will be like, he got really big, he's got to be on SARMs. And I tell them, like, yo, when you're a kid, if you just like chow down on milk, steak, eggs, potatoes, and make your own protein shakes with like milk, ice cream, peanut butter, like you can get jacked. But it's interesting that people still don't understand it. And I'll tell them, like, yeah, this is actually normal for them to get big.